So jirra jirtu hordoftoonni chaanaalii keenyaa har'a statics 2 jalqabna. Statics 1 almost chapter 5 chapter 4 laaluuf yaalleerra. Introduction to statics, especially business statics. Chapter 1 lammaffaarratti waa'ee about data collection. Chapter 3 waa'ee measure of central tendency. Part 1 fi part 2 jennee measure of central tendency, part 2 measure of central dispersion immoo partii lammaffaa goonee dhumarratti immoo probability and probability distribution chapter 4 laaluuf yaallee turre. Amma immoo statics 2 eegalla jechuudha. Statics 2 chapteriin jalqabaa sampling and sampling distribution jechuudhaan kan eegallu ta'a jechuudha. So when it comes to the definition, some basic definition of terms are there. Termileen chapter kana keessatti fayyadamnu kanneen asin duras research methodology irrallee tuttuquuf yaalleef jiru isaanan sana ilaaluuf yaalla jechuudha. Fakkeenyaaf population jechuun maal jechuudha, sample jechuun maal jechuudha, sampling jechuun immoo maal inni kan jedhu ilaalla jechuudha. So the instant population refers to all items that have been chosen for study. So kana jechuudha completely research tokko hojjechuudhaaf sampling nu barbaachisu jira beekamaadha. Sampling sana guutumatti kan fudhannu yoo ta'e population jedhama jechuudha. Population jedhama. Kanaaf population jechuun all items that have been chosen for study kan qonnaa keenyaaf nu barbaachisu guutumaan guututti gaafa fudhannu population jennaanii jechuudha. Kana almost as in durallee ilaaluuf yaallee turre beektu. So all item ta'e taanaan population nu agarsiisa jechuudha. While sample refers to the portion or a subset of the population. Kanaaf population sana keessa fudhannu immoo portion suni maal jedhama? Sample jedhama jechuudha. Sample jedhama. So sampling the portion or subset of a population jechuu dandeessu jechuudha. Fakkeenyaaf in the academic performance of first year management student, the GPA of all first year student is a population. Amma fakkeenyaaf academic performance barattoota management waggaa tokkoffaa kan ilaallu yoo ta'e GPA isaanii barattoota tokko isaanii hundi isaanii gaafa fudhannu population jennaani. GPA sana keessa immoo barattoota 2.5 fi sana ol fidan gaafa keessaa baafnu sample ta'a jechuudha. So sometimes it is possible in the practical to every person or item in the population we wish to study, and we call such type of studies known as complete enumeration or census jennaan jechuudha. Kanaaf census jechuun maal jechuudha? Elementoota population sana keessa jiran hunda isaanii irratti qonna gaafa deebisifnu census yookaan complete enumeration jennaan jechuudha. Inni itti aanu sampling. So sampling jechuun selected sampler or a part of the item from the population can be taken. So sampling jennaan jechuudha. Adeemsa sana processii sana jechuudha. Sampling kan jennu mathematically we can describe samples and the population by using a measure such as a mean, median, mode and standard deviation. Isaan kanneen akkuma reefu dubbachuuf yaali stat 1 irratti ilaalleerra. Kanaaf viidiyoo asin dura hojjetame gara duubatti deemtanii ilaaluu dandeessu. Kanaaf mathematically yookaan bifa herregaatiin gaafa sample yookaan population ibsuu barbaadnu parameteroonni nuti fayyadamnu actually mean, median, mode fi standard deviation jechuudha. So when these terms describe the characteristics of the sample, they are also called statics, and the way they describe the characteristics of the population, that is known as parameter. Termilee lamaan kaniin adda baastanii beekuu danda'u qabdu, statics and parameter. Statics kan jennuun gaafa mean, median, mode fi standard deviation kuni waa'ee sample irratti kan hojjetamu yoo ta'e maal jennaanii? Statics jennaani. Gaafa mean, median, mode fi standard deviation immoo population irra hojjetamu immoo parameter jennaan. Kanaafin kun exit exam irratti happen ta'ee ture barattoota business management fi management irratti jechuudha. Kanaaf staticsiin maayinni parameteriin immoo maayinni kan jedhu adda baasuu danda'u qabdu jechuudha. Kanaaf jecha sampling jedhu kana termii kana saayintistoonni hedduun hiikaa garaagaraa kennaafi turan. Fakkeenyaaf in every branch of science we lack resources and more than fragment of phenomena that might evident our knowledge. In this definition, fragment indicates the sample and the phenomena indicates what? The population. Now, research guutumaan guutuutti population irratti hojjechuu yeroo baay'ee nutti ulfaachuu danda'a. Maaliif kosti guddaa nu gaafachuu danda'a waan ta'eef. Kanaaf fragmentii sanarra hojjenna. Kanaaf fragment termiin jedhu population nu akeeka. Phenomena yookaan taateen immoo population is an ultimate. So sample observation are applied to the phenomena, which mean generalization. So generalization gaafa jennu all items jira kanaaf population, phenomena, generalization are the same term. In social science, it is not possible to collect the data from every respondent relevant to every study, but only some fractional part of the respondent can be taken, and the process of selecting a fractional part is known as sampling. Kanaaf jecha sampling jedhu kana bifa garaagaraatiin hiikuu ni dandeenya jechuudha. David-Fox sampling is a fundamental to all statistical methodology jedhani. David-Fox sampling jechuun fundamental to all statistical methodology of behavioral and social research. Kanaaf researchiin social science yookaan behavioral science irratti xiyyeeffatu yeroo baay'ee samplingii kana akka statistical methodology itti fayyadama. So bar sampling initiates the data at the source and no amount of subsequent statistical finding will improve as a quality. Kana jechuun sampling gaafa fudhannu bar sampling fudhanna taanaan general conclusion dhumarra yookaan data argannu sun quality isaa gaafii keessa seena jechuudha. Kanaaf samplingin xiyyeeffannaa guddaa akka barbaadu nutti. So in fact it is a part of the strategy of research and it has by now acquired as status of technical job. In physical science, there is no problem of sampling. Any fragment or a piece of phenomena is truly representative. Therefore, the generalization based on sample is actually true. Kanaaf discipline to discipline garaagarummaa guddaa qabachuudha sampling. Especially behavioral science keessatti sampling nuti fudhannu xiyyeeffannaa guddaa barbaada. Maaliif sampling nuti fudhannu suni population sana ibsuu danda'u qaba yookaan represent gochuu danda'u qaba jechuudha. So sampling means a selection of individual from the population in such a way that every individual has an equal chance to be taken to the sampling in a population. Now, probability sampling jechaa jirra jechuudha kana karaa biraatiin. Research methodology chapter 4 is not jira achirratti ilaala kan maal jechuudha samploonni nuti fudhannu hundi isaaniitu chaansii wal fakkaata yookaan chaansii wal qixa yoo qabaatan filatamuudhaaf probability sampling technique akka jennu achirra isiniif ibseetiin ture. So in total population or universe means the entire means of observation which is a parent group from which a sample is to be formed. And the sample observation provides only an estimate of that population parameters. Kanaaf termiin population yookaan universe jedhu kuni convey different meaning in traditional one. It can be census survey and the count of individuals which men, women, the children is known as the population. Jenna jechuudha. Kanaaf gabaabumatti population walitti qabama sample research hojjechuuf fayyadamu sanaati jechuudha. But research methodology population means the characteristics of specific group. Kanaaf chapter 4 research methodology or sampling and research design kan jedhu sirriitti hojjedhee jira waan ta'eef research methodology irra ilaaluu dandeessu jechuudha. For example, secondary teachers of East Hararge who have some specific features like teaching experience, male, female, academic qualification, and teaching attitude as well as teaching aptitude can act as what? A population. Another example, in high school student of Harar, some of the specific characteristics like age group, boys and girls, personality, scholastic aptitude, academic motivation can also be another population. So we can again define population in different terms or different phenomena, different cause. Example, if the cumulative GPA of all first year management student this one, in this case 3.312 are the characteristics of that population, so-called parameters. All first year management student and are termed as population. Population parameter jennaan jechuudha. Gaafa all jennu waa'ee population ibsaa jirra waan ta'eef population gaafa ibsinu immoo termiin fayyadamnu parameterii ta'a jenneerra. Gaafa samplii fudhannu fakkeenyaaf the only hand if we say that the mean of cumulative GPA first year student at Haramaya main campus gaafa jennu immoo samplii ta'aaf jira jechuudha. So first year student at Haramaya University or main campus can be associated with sample. Therefore gaafa sana meaning kun maal ta'a sample statics ta'achuu sample statics ta'achuu kanaaf sample statics and sample parametriin garaagarummaan isaanii kana fakkaata jechuudha. So if we convince that the sample statics are accurate estimate of the population characteristics, we could use sample statics to estimate the population parameter without measuring the entire items under study. In order to be consistent, technicians use lowercase Roman letter to denote sample statics and Greek or capital letter to denote a population. Kanaaf gaafa asumatti ilaaluu dandeenya actually. Kana jechuun jechuudha gaafa sampling keenya population ta'e capital inni kana fayyadamna. Gaafa immoo sample ta'e immoo maal fayyadamna? Small inni kana fayyadamna jechuudha. Population mean population size can also be represented by this letter and the sample mean can be represented by x bar. And there is also population standard deviation which can be expressed like this, and the sample standard deviation which can be expressed in capital S. So these are some symbols and some terms that can be used in population and the sample graph. Gaafa population if sample fayyadamnu termileen fayyadamnu garaagarummaa akka qaban as keessatti population gaafa ta'e parameetrii ta'a gaas keessa immoo statics ta'a jechuudha. As a population size in capital fayyadamna sample keessatti immoo small inni fayyadamna. Population mean yookaan average asitti mu fayyadamna Greek letter asitti immoo x bar fayyadamna jechuudha. Kanaaf garaagarummaa wayii qabu. Maarri sampling fudhachuun maaliif barbaachise? What is the need of sampling kan jedhu laalla jechuudha. Although there are many advantages with a census method, the cost, effort, inni tokkoffaan cost, inni lammaffaan effort, inni sadaffaan immoo the time required for the research. Kanaaf gaafa population keenya large ta'e tokkoon isaanirra data funaanuudhaaf gatiin baafnu humni baafnu fi yeroon baafnu baay'ee guddaadha. Sababa kanaaf sampling fudhachuun baay'ee barbaachisaadha. So sampling involves examination of small portion of the elementary unit in the population. Achuma keessa population isa keessa small unit yookaan small portion irratti waan qo'annaa deemsifnuuf at least cost fi time keenya save gochuu danda'a jechuudha. Walumaa galatti population sampling fayyadamuun faayidaan isaa hedduudhaas keessa inni tokko population is very large, therefore infinite and it would be impossible to conduct survey census tokko kana wali sampling fudhannu inni lammaffaa quick result gaafa barbaadne result keenya saffisaan kan barbaadnu yoo ta'e sample keenya muraasa fudhachuun nurraa eegama jechuudha. Study involving destruction of the elementary unit under study to the only be appropriate to go for sample testing. Yes, the items such as light bulbs and ammunition must be destroyed as a part of testing the process. Kana jechuun fakkeenyaaf fabrikaan ampuulii oomishu tokko ampuulii sana hunda irratti qo'annaan adeemsisu maaliifi ampuuliin kun jalaa tabalashuu yookaan caccabuu danda'a waan ta'eef isa sana baraaruudhaaf yookaan wantoota caccaban test gaafa goon destruction sana avoid gochuudhaaf sample irratti osoo test goon cost keenya minimize gochuu qofa osoo hin taane waan qabsan destruct gochuurraa ni baraaramna jechuudha. Inni ta'aanu akkuma reefu dubbanni cost reduction dha. And sometimes accuracy may be lost due to large size of the population. Even accuracy dabaluudhaafis sampling dhaan research hojjechuun baay'ee murteessaa akka ta'e nuuf hima jechuudha. Therefore, as a sampling involves less time and money, it would be possible to give attention to different characteristics of elementary unit. So a sample using some money and time can be produced detailed study of lesser number of units. Kanaaf time keenya minimize gochuuf cost keenya minimize gochuudhaaf research keenya sample irratti hojjechuudhaan waa'ee population sana dhumarratti generalization kennu akka dandeenyu beekuun bareedaadha jechuudha. Inni itti aanu designing and conducting sampling study dha. As you know, designing research design sample study kan jedhu research methodology irraa hamma tokko laalleerra asittis deeply kan ilaallu tachuun. So in survey the survey are concerned with the attribute of certain entities such as business, enterprise, human being and extra. So the attribute that the object of the study are known as characteristics and the units processing them are called elementary units. Kanaaf gaafa study taasifnu wanti nuti study gochuu wanni conduct gochuu dandeenyu barbaannu suni wanni qo'achuu barbaannu suni characteristics jedhama. Unitiin characteristics sana ibsin immoo elementary unit jedhama jechuudha. Elementary unit jedhama. Therefore the aggregate elementary unit to which the conclusion of the study applies termed as population yookaan universe jedhama. And the units that form the basis of sampling process are called sampling unit, and the sampling unit may be elementary units. So sample is defined as an aggregate of sampling unit actually chosen in obtaining a representative subset from the population in which inference about the population can be takes place. Inference jechuun sample sanarra data jiru research jiru erge hojjanni interpret godhee booda waa'ee population sana infer gochuu express gochuu danda'u qaba jechuudha. So the frame lists of directory define all sampling unit in the universe to be covered. So this frame is either constructed for the purpose of particular survey or may consist of a previously available description of population, and the latter it is commonly used as a method. So for example, telephone directory can be used as a frame for conducting opinion survey in city or locality environment. So in order that sampling results reflect the characteristics of the population, it is necessary that the sample selected for study should be kanaaf kun immoo maallu akeekuu barbaada. Amma research keenya sample irratti fudhannu yookaan sample irratti hojjenna irra maaliif population irratti hojjechuudhaaf yeroo gaafata, kosti guddaa nu gaafata, akkasumas humna guddaa nu gaafata jenneera. Kanaaf gaafa sample irra fudhannee waa'ee sample sanarra data argame gara population itti infer goonu sample suni population sana ibsuu akka danda'us ilaalleera. Kanaaf sample nuti fudhannu maal ta'uu qabaadha, ulaagaaleen inni guutuu qabu maal fa'aa ta'uu qabaadha. Inni tokkoffaa true representative ta'uu qaba. Kan bakka bu'aa population sana ta'uu qaba jechuudha. This means selected sample truly represent the universe so that the result can be generalized. Kanaaf generalized gochuudhaaf sample fudhannu sun population sana kan ibsu kan bakka bu'u ta'uu qabaadha. Inni lammaffaa adequate gahaa ta'uu qaba. Sample fudhannu suni gahaa ta'uu qabaadha. The size of the sample or the sample size should be adequate enough to represent various characteristics of what? The population. Kanaaf population sana bakka bu'uudhaaf gahaa ta'uu qaba. Inni biraa independent ta'uu qaba. Independent. This means the elementary unit select should be independent of one another, and all the unit of population should have the same chance of being selected in a sample. Especially in probability sampling, all the sample you have to take have equal chance of to be selected. Inni sun maal agarsiisa? Independency nu agarsiisa jechuudha. Sampling fudhanne hundi isaaniitu carraan select godhamu walqixa qabaachuu jechuudha. Inni biraa homogeneity yookaan homogeneity. This means there should not be any basic difference between the characteristics of the units in a sample and that of the population. This means if two or more samples are drawn from the same population, the result should be more or less what? Identical. More or less identical yookaan wal fakkaata ta'uu danda'a jechuudha. Isaan kunniin amaloonni yookaan wantoonni afran kun baay'ee murteessaadha. Truly representative ta'uu qaba, adequate ta'uu qaba, independent ta'uu qaba, homogeneous ta'uu qaba jechuudha. Kanaaf which of the following is exactly the criteria of sampling that takes from population jedhee bifa karaan gaaffii isin gaafatamuu danda'a waan ta'eef yoo fi isaan kan adda baasuu danda'u qabu jechuudha. Inni itti aanu sampling and non-sampling erroridha. Maaliif gaafa sampling fudhannu errorii hojjechuu dandeenya. Erroriin suni sampling errorii fi non-sampling error jennee bakka lamatti qooduu dandeenya. So two major types of error can arise when sampling observation is taken from population. One is sampling error, the other is what? Non-sampling error. Anyone reviewing the result of a sample survey and studies, as well as statistics practitioner conducting survey and applying statistical techniques should understand the source of this error. Kanaaf error free hojiin error irraa bilisa ta'e hin jiru. Kanaaf dogoggorri jira. Dogoggorri jiru san immoo eessaa madde jedhanii beekuuf sirriitti expert ta'uu qabna yookaan understand goonee beekuu qabna. Madda isaa jechuudha. So when you see sampling error, it refers to the difference between the sample and the population that exists only because of the observation that happened to be selected for a sample or a sample. Therefore, there is really a difference between that sample and the population exists during observation happened to selection of a sample. So sampling error is an error that we expect to occur when we make a statement about population that is based only on the observation contained in sample taken from that of population. Maalif population irraa fudhannee sample keenya population sana keessa fudhannee waa'ee population sana infer gochuu yookaan immoo express gochuu waan dandeenyuuf gochaas jirra waan ta'eef error hojjechuun immoo eegatti dirqama ta'a jechuudha. So to illustrate, suppose that we wish to determine the mean annual income of North American blue collar workers. To determine this parameter, we would have to ask each North American blue collar worker what his and her income is and calculate the mean of all the response. Because size of this population is several million, the task in both is expensive and impractical. We can use statistical inference to estimate the mean income of that population if you are willing to accept less than 100 accuracy. We record this incomes of samples of the workers and find the mean of the sample of this income. This sample mean is estimated and a desired population mean, but the value of the sample mean will deviate from the population mean simply by chance because of the value of the sample mean depend on which income just happened to be selected from the sample. Kana jechuun gabaabumatti maal jechaa jira? Namoonni Ameerikaa keessatti hojii humnaa hojjetanii gatiin isaan argatan yookaan miindaan isaan argatan miiniin isaa annual income isaanii maal fakkaata kan jedhu gaafa hojjennu namoota achi keessa jiran miiliyoona hunda walitti qabuun nurraa hin danda'amu actually. Hin danda'amu maaliif gatii guddaa gaafata. Actually is impractical. Kanaaf daataan saampilii fudhannee hojjennu suni parsantii 100% dhugaa akka hin taane beekuu fi fudhachuun nurraa eegamaa jedha asirratti kan nuti himaa jiru. Kanaaf given a fixed sample size, the best way we can do is to state the probability that sampling error is less than certain amount. Kanaaf error sana hamma tokko gadi buusuu danda'uu qabna malee error free hojjechuun hin danda'amu jechuudha. So it is common today for such statement to accompany the result of the opinion pool. If an opinion pool states that based on the sample result, the incumbent candidate for mayor has been support 54, which is eligible voter in a upcoming election, the statement may be accompanied by the following explanatory note. This percentage is correct to within 3 percentage points, 90 times out of 20. This means the statement means that we estimate the actual level of support for a candidate is between 51% and 57%, and that long run may become at 95 confidence interval. Therefore, gabaabumatti during probability sampling you can commit what an error hojjechuu akka dandeenyu nutti himaa jira. Nan sampling error jedhaman immoo jiru. Nan sampling error kan jennu kunniin lammaan more serious than sampling error because taking a larger sample won't diminish the size and the possibility of occurrence of this error. Maal jechuudha? Sampling error gaafa fudhannu sirreessuu ni dandeenya. Maaliif sample size keenya dabalaa gaafa deemnu error achi keessatti hojjetame gadi buusaa deemna. Garuu gaafa nan sampling error hojjenne sampling guddaa fudhachuun error kana hin sirreessu. Sababa kanaaf nan sampling error is a more dangerous or more serious type of error kan jenneef karaa jechuudha. Non sampling error result from mistake made in acquisition of data or from a sample observation being selected improperly. Data gaafa collect goonu ta'uu danda'a. Gaafa observe goonu dogoggorri hojjennu non sampling error jennaan jechuudha. For example, error in data acquisition. Gaafa data collect goonu error hin hojjennu. The other one is non-response error warroonni jedhaman immoo jiru. Non-response error refers to error or bias introduced when response are not obtained from some members sample. Kana jechuun fakkeenyaaf gaafa interviewudhaan data collect goonu namoonni tokko interview nu kennuudhaaf hayyamamaa hin ta'an. Yookaan immoo gaafa questionnaire distribute goone questionnaire sana akka namoota gaafannu namoonni tokko gaafilee tokko bira utaaluu danda'u. Inni akkasii sun maal jennaani? Non-response error jennaani jechuudha. Non-response error jennaani. The other one is selection bias. Selection bias. So selection bias occurs when a sampling plan is such that some members of the target population cannot possibly be selected for inclusion in a sample. Jechuudha gaafa select goon biasii hojjechuu dandeenya kan hammatamuu qabu dhiifnee waan sampling hammatamuu qabne hammannee deemuu dandeenya. Gaafa akkasiisan erroriin hojjetamu selection bias jedhama. Inni kunis sampling error jalatti ramadama jechuudha. Inni itti aanu type of sampling. Actually kanas research methodology chapter 4 irratti ilaalleerra check there highlight isaa tuqnee deemna. Generally sampling two type of sampling tu jira. Inni tokko probability sampling jedha, inni lammaffaa immoo non probability or judgmental sampling jedha. Probability or random sampling jechuun maal jechuudha? A sampling when all items, meaning each element in the population have a chance of being chosen in a sample, and then the probability of each element of population included in a sample is already known. Kana jechuun sampling fudhannu sun probability isaanii wal qixa gaafa ta'e fi probability isaanii kan beekamu yoo ta'e probability sampling yookaan random sampling jenna jechuudha. There are several probability sampling technique which we'll discuss later jedha. Actually research methodology chapter 4 irratti kan asirratti seenite ibseen jira. Isa sana biroos godhaati barbaada. Non-probability or non-random or judgmental sampling is a sampling methodology where personal knowledge and opinion play a major role in identifying which element of the population to be included in a sample, and the probability of each element from the population included in a sample is already known now. Asirratti immoo non-probability sampling or judgmental sampling gaafa jennu here sampling suni carraa select ta'uu isaa hin beekamu jechuudha. Kanaaf probability of selection in each sample is not what? Known. So just like probability sampling, non-probability sampling have also varies technique kanas achitti ilaalleerra various cases dandeenya. So probability sampling have the following main characteristics. Amalli isaa baay'ee inni tokkoffaan in probability sampling we refer some sample as well as the population. In probability sampling every individual and the population has an equal probability of to be selected. The probability may be probability sampling may representative of the population. Yes, population represent gochuu ni danda'a probability sampling. So observation of the probability sample are used as inferential purpose. Waa'ee population isaanii gochuu ibsu ni danda'a jechuudha. As well as the probability sample not from distribution for any variables. Inferential or parametric statistics are used for probability sampling. There is a risk of drawing conclusion from probability sampling. And finally, a probability sampling is highly comprehensive, and representative refers to what? Characteristics of the population. Jechuu dandeenya jechuudha. Probability sampling kun immoo bakka hedduutti qoodama. Simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling and cluster sampling jennee qooduu dandeenya. Isaan sun tokko tokkoon isaanii maal keessatti hammatu kan jedhu ilaalla. When it comes to simple random sampling is selecting a sample so that each possible sample has been equal chance of being picked, and each element of the population has the same probability of being included in a sample, and it is independent of whether some of the element is chosen. Kana jechuun probability sampling nuti select goonu keessaa probability isaanii gaafa wal qixa ta'e simple random sampling jenna jechuudha. Simple random sampling. Fakkeenyaaf suppose the restaurant has 4 branches, north, south, east and west, and that it wanted to select sample of 2 branches at a time in order to evaluate the operational branch. Using simple random sampling, there are 6 different samples of size 2 that can be drawn in each population from the 4 branches. The 6 can be north and the south, north and the east, northwest, southeast, southwest, and east-west. Ta'uu danda'a jechuudha. Right now jechuudha. Restaurantii afurtu jira, north, south, east, and west. Kana keessa garuu lama qofa select gochuu barbaadne jechuudha. Karaa meeqaan select gochuu dandeenya? Karaa 6 select gochuu dandeenya. Kana jechuun isa tokko north filanne, isa kaan immoo south filachuu dandeenya. Isa tokko north filanne, isa tokko immoo east filachuu dandeenya. Isa tokko north filanne, isa tokko immoo west filachuu dandeenya. Kanaaf bifa kanaan probability nuti qabnu gara 6tti guddachuu danda'a. Main advantage in simple random sampling? Simple random sampling have some advantage. One, it requires a minimum knowledge of population. Why population is an so minimum knowledge you can. It is free from subjectivity. Yes, as optimal to you, judgmental, free from personality. Personality as case in simple random sampling. It also provides appropriate data for our purpose. appropriate data for our purpose, and the observation of the sample can be used for inferential purpose. Enough. Because of the sample have exactly equal probability of being selected, inferential can only dandenya waa'ee population isa jechuudha. So what is the disadvantage? Disadvantage in some way, the representatives of sample cannot be ensured by this method. 100% sure jechuun dandenya. This method does not use a knowledge about the population, and the inferential accuracy of the finding depends upon the size of the sample. Kanaaf gaafa sampling keenya baay'achaa deemu inferential yookaan accuracy keenyas dabalaa deemu jechuu waan barbaadeen kanaaf inferential akka disadvantage kan keenya jechuudha. Inni itti aanu systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is an improvement over simple random sampling. Simple random sampling jenne sanarratti improvement kan qabudha. This method requires complete information about the population. Why population asirratti immoo complete information qabna jechuudha. There should be a list of information of all the individual of the population in any systematic way. Now we decided to what? Large or size of the sample. Here the sample size can be n or small n, and the population size can be capital N. Now we select n over n's individual from the list, and thus we have the desired size of the sample, which is known as systematic sampling. Thus for this technique of sampling, population should arrange in a systematic way. In a fakkeenya kana illustration example kana laalu. Suppose that there is 1,000 residents or household in one qabale with different income level. Kanaaf qabalee tokko keessatti uummattoota meeqatu jira? 1,000. Hundi isaanii immoo income level isaanii garaagarummaa guddaa qaba jechuudha. Income level galiin isaanii. If statistician or researcher has a list of all household randomly listed and wanted to study the income disparity in that family by taking 15 samples. Since there are 1,000 household, and the sampling can be combined by taking what every 20 household on as a list kana jechuun kuma yeroo 50 digdama ta'e the 20s engine. To determine which of the first 20 elements to be being with the statistician or research randomly chosen number 1 to what 20. So once this number is chosen, let's say 3, then the statistician selects search board 20 search, 13 search, 14 search household from the list can be selected. Such kind of sampling is known as systematic sampling jedhama jechuudha. Namoota kuma keessatti kumatu qabalee tokko keessa jira. Income disparity isaanii beekuu barbaadne achi keessa garuu namoota yookaan saampilii 50 namoota 50 qofa fudhanne jechuudha. Kanaaf namoota kuma keessa namoota 50 bifatanii select gochuu dandeenya. Kuma tokko yeroo 50 digdama. Kanaaf namni jalqabaa lakkoofsa sadaffaa irratti yoo jiraate systematically namni lammaffaa 23 irra jira jechuudha. 23 irra jira. Kanaaf bifa kanaan sample select gochuun systematic sampling jedhama. Often systematic sampling is regarded as identical as simple random sampling. Almost simple random sampling wajjin wal fakkaata. This is true only if the elements of the population are random order on the list. This means the elements of the population are random order on the list. This means the elements of the population on the list are not in sort radically or any other type of pattern in the list. Main advantage is systematic sampling. In advantage is it's a simple method of selecting sample. It reduces field cost. Field cost really reduces inferential statistics may be used here. Sample may be comprehensive and representative of the population. Observation of the sample may be used for drawing what? Inference or conclusion as well as generalization about what? The population. Kanaaf sample sanarra dhaabbanne waa'ee population maal gochuu dandeenya? Generalize gochuu dandeenya. So inni kun advantage isaati. Akka disadvantage kan ibsamu moonni tokkoffaa is not free from error. Error irraa bilisa miti yookaan walaba miti. Because subjectivity are there. Subjectivity jiraachuu waan danda'u. In turn, information of each individual is what? Essential by number matches. This method can't ensure representativeness. Representativeness irratti surely miti. There is a risk in drawing conclusion from the observation of the sample. These are a disadvantage of systematic sampling. Stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is simply sampling technique in which a population is divided into strata and random sampling is taken from the element in each strata. Kanaaf kun immoo population sana keessa sampling fudhannee jira. Sampling sanniin karaa adda addaatiin qoqqoodne jechuudha. Kana jechuun straataatiin qoqqoodne. Fakkeenyaaf namoota reefuma income level isaaniitiin namoota 50 fudhannee sana maal goona? Income level sana immoo ni qoqqoodne jechuudha. Low income level, high income level and medium income level jennee qoqqoodne. High, medium and low kan jedhu suni straataadha jechuudha. Straataadha jechuudha. Karaa populationii range sana keessa jiran walitti qabna. Inni suni stratified sampling jedhama. Stratified sampling. For instance, if the researcher wants to deal with the income inequality situation in Adama city, researcher can divide the household into different groups as civil servant, merchants, trade, free trade and local resellers. Right? Namoota maal qoqqoodee jechuudha akkaataa galii isaaniitiin namoota naannoo Adaamaa kan magaalaa Adaamaa keessatti argaman bifa garaagaraatiin qoqqoodne civil servantonni, merchantiin, free trade and local grain trade warroota ta'an galiin isaanii garaagarummaa waan qabuuf akkasitti qoqqooduu ni dandeenya jechuudha. Stratified sampling maybe bakka sadiitti qooduu dandeenya. Disproportionate, proportionate and optimum allocation stratified sampling jennee bakka sadiitti qooduu ni dandeenya. Gaafa disproportionate means sampling jennu size of sample in each unit is not proportionate to the size of the units but depend on consideration involving a personal judgment or convenience. This method of sampling is more effective for comparing strata which have different error possibility. It is less efficient for determining the population parameter. Kanaaf proportionally before walqixa ta'een gaafa strata sana hojjenne disproportionate jennaani gaafa bifa wal fakkaatu yookaan walqixa ta'een immoo proportionally gaafa kun that is known as proportional sampling jennaani. Optimum allocation of stratified sampling jechuun immoo is a representative as well as comprehensive than other stratified sampling. Here it refers to selecting a unit from each stratum should be in proportion to the corresponding stratum of the population. Thus, sample obtained is known as optimum allocation of stratified sampling. Jedhama jechuudha. Inni kun advantage isaa yeroo baay'ee it is a good representative of population. It is an improvement over earlier. It is an objective method of sampling. And its observation can be used for inferential purpose. Inferential purpose about population jechuun isa kun akka advantage of stratified sampling itti fudhatamu waan danda'u gaafa ta'u disadvantage of stratified sampling immoo inni tokko serious disadvantage of this method is that it is difficulty for researcher to decide selection relevant criteria for stratification. Stratification criteria baasuun salphaa miti. Inni kun akka disadvantage fudhatama. And only one criteria can be used for stratification, but it generally seems more than one criteria relevant for stratification can be used. And it's only costly and time consuming. Strata sana hojjechuun dheera fudhachuu danda'a, maallaqa guddaa nu gaafachuu danda'a. The selected sample may representative with reference to be used criterion but not for further. And finally, there is a risk of generalization in stratified sampling. Sampling kunniin akka disadvantage kan fudhatamanidha yoo ta'u inni dhuma of probability sampling, cluster sampling. So cluster sampling is a sampling in which one divides elements in the population into a number of clusters or groups. Yes, once can be begun by choosing a random sample of these clusters, after which a simple random sample of the element in each chosen cluster can be selected. So sometimes it refers to as two-stage cluster sampling to select an interactive group as well as a cluster of sampling. Sampling keenya bifa cluster ta'e yookaan immoo bifa group-ittiin gaafa qoqqoodnu cluster sampling jenna jechuudha. Fakkeenyaaf still taking the study of an income disparity ammas isuma reefu sana income disparity harroota Adaamaa gaafa fudhannu in this case the Adama city will be classified as a locality, which means northern or southern part of what? The Adama. Once the city is classified into various clusters, randomly some of the clusters like locality in our case will be chosen. The researcher randomly select what? The element from the chosen clusters. So such type of sampling technique is known as cluster sampling. Generally, advantage is and good done. It is a good representative of what? The population. It is easy method as well as economical method. No, it is practical, practicable and highly applicable in education. Keessattuu barnoota keessatti gahee guddaa taphatachuu danda'udha. Observation can be used as inferential purpose. Inni kun akka advantage itti gaafa fudhatamu, disadvantage isaa immoo yeroo baay'ee cluster sampling is not free from what? Error. That is not comprehensive. It is not comprehensive. This one is act as a disadvantage of cluster sampling. So how we can compare stratified sampling and the cluster sampling? Comparison will do good to the cluster sampling and stratified sampling. So most of the time students face difficulty in differentiating stratified and the cluster sampling. Almost well fakkaatu waan ta'eef differentiate gochuun xiqqoo namatti ulfaata. So the main distribution criteria of stratified from cluster sampling is that in the case of stratified sampling, the population is divided at well grouped, where each group has homogeneity with itself, but heterogeneity or variation among the groups. In the case of cluster sampling, the situation is the reverse of stratified sampling. Kanaaf maqaadhaan waan wal fakkaatan malee garaagarummaa guddaa akka qabanis asitti isinitti himaa jira jechuudha. Inni lammaffaan non-probability sampling technique dha. Non-probability sampling is known as non-parametric sampling technique, in which it can be characterized as there is no idea of population in probability sampling. There is no probability of selecting any individual. Non-probability sampling is free of distribution. The observation of non-probability sampling are not used for generalization of purpose. Kanaaf asirratti inference kennuun akka reefu sana hin danda'amu jechuudha. Non-parametric or non-inferential statistics are used for non-probability sampling. There is no risk of drawing conclusion from non-probability sampling. Kanaaf isaan kunniin amaloota non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling bakka hedduutti qonna irraa fakkeenyaaf inni tokkoffaan accidental or incidental jennaani. The term incidental or accidental apply to choose sample that are taken because they are frequently available. This means this refers to a group which are used as a sample of the population because they are readily available or because the researcher is unable to employ more acceptable sampling method. This one is incidental. Incidental tasa fudhachuu waan danda'amu jechuudha. Advantage isaa easy of sampling. Yeah, it is easy. It is very easy to take sample. It's frequently used in behavioral science and it reduces time, money and energy, which means that it is not economical and method. Disadvantage is it doesn't represent the population. It is not free from error. And finally, the parametric statistics cannot be used. So this is the phenomena of non-probability sampling. As jalatti maaltu jira judgmental sampling in jira. This is the selection of a group from population on the basis of available information thoughts. So information jiru irratti depend ta'uudhaan judgmentally population sana select gochuu dandeenya jechuudha. Sampling keenya select gochuu dandeenya. This is a representative of total population or the selection of a group by intuition. Intuition jechuun guess on the basis of criteria deemed to be self-evident. Generally, investigators should take the judgment sampling to so the sampling is highly risky, highly risky. Disadvantage is knowledge of investigator can be best used in this technique of sampling, and the technique of sampling is also highly economical. So this one is the advantage. When it comes to the disadvantage of this sampling technique, it is almost this technique is objective and it is not free from error actually. Yes, that includes an controlled variation. The inferential statistics cannot be used for observation of this sampling, and the generalization is not possible here. Generalization gochuu hin dandeenyu judgmental sampling fayyadamne jechuudha. Inni kaan immoo purposive sampling. Purposive sampling, as the name indicates, is selected for some arbitrary method because it is known to be what represent of the total population, or it is known that it will produce well-matched groups. Kaayyoo wayiidhaaf sampling collect goonu immoo jira. Inni sun immoo purposive sampling jedhama. Purposive sampling. So as the advantage, use of the best available knowledge concerning a sample, the better control of significant variable, sample group data can easily matched, and finally homogeneity of the subject must be what used. This one is the advantage of this technique, and finally the disadvantage is actually reliability of criteria in question. Knowledge of population is essential. Error in classifying sampling, error probability to utilize differential parameter in statistics, and finally inability to make generalization of total population. So some is the disadvantage of this technique, and maybe the last technique is quota sampling. Quota sampling is combined both judgmental sampling and probability sampling. Judgmental sampling fi probability sampling bakka tokkotti waan qabudha jechuudha. Quota sampling. So this population is classified from category on the basis of judgment or assumption or the previous analogy. The proportion of population falling into the category decided. Then after quota of cases to be drawn is fixed, and the observer is allowed to sample as he likes. Quota sampling is very arbitrary and like figure or municipal survey. It is an important improvement over the judgmental sampling. It is an easy sampling technique and most frequently used for social survey, but the disadvantage is it is not representative of sampling, it is not free from error, and as well as it has an influence of regional, geographical, and social factors. Therefore, since research design is a plan by which a research sample may be selected for a population under which experimental treatment may be administered or controlled, so that their effects upon the sample may be measured. So this all are about sampling technique. Here sampling distribution are our next topic. Sampling distribution is next topic. So far we have examined how sample can be taken from population using one of the already discussed sampling technique. Kanaaf hanga amma akkaataa sampling itti fudhannu, teknikoota sampling itti fudhannu laallee jirra. So if we take several samples from population, the statistics we would compute for each sample not be the same, and most likely would be vary from sample to sample. Fakkeenyaaf, suppose that the population has 5 elements. Kanaaf population keenya 5 yoo walumaa galatti 3, 6, 9, 12 fi 5. These are the population. Now, if you want to do those 3 samples, we have 10 option or 10 times technical option are there for taking sample. Kanaaf population 5 qabna achi keessa sample 3 qofa barbaadu. Population keenya 3, 6, 9, 12 fi 15. Kanaaf population keenya 5 keessa sample 3 barbaanna, garuu 3 suni karaalee 10 fudhachuu dandeenya. Fakkeenyaaf 3, 6, 9 waliin fudhachuu dandeenya. 3, 6 fi 12 fudhachuu dandeenya. 3, 6, 15 fudhachuu dandeenya. 3, 9, 12 fudhachuu dandeenya. 6, 12, 15, 3, 9, 15, 3, 12, 15, 6, 9, 12, 6, 9, 15 fi 9, 12, 15. Isaanin kan gaafa lakkooftan 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 10 taachuu karaalee 10 kanaan maal gochuu dandeenya fudhachuu dandeenya jechuudha. Sana booda miinii isaanii barbaaduu dandeessu. Miinii jechuun maal jechuudha? Isaanin kana walitti hidhuudhaan 3 firuudha. Jechuun 3 hidhuu 6 hidhuu 9 hiruu 3 jechuudha. Kun meeqa ta'a? 8 hiruu 3 ta'a jechuudha. Inni kun immoo deebiin isaa meeqa ta'a? 6 ta'a jechuudha. 6 ta'a jechuudha. So bifa kanaanii hojjetame total mean isaa immoo gaafa walitti hidhatan 90 ta'a jechuudha. Kanaaf bifa kanaan sampling distribution isaanii ilaaluu ni dandeenya jechuudha. The population mean is simply summation of all x divided for n dha. That is 9 ta'a. So when it comes to sampling distribution, it is a probability distribution of all the value of sample statics, and we do have sampling distribution of the mean as well as that of what the proportion. When it comes to sampling distribution of the mean, sampling distribution of the mean is the probability distribution of the sample mean. To illustrate, we have taken sample from population and computed a mean of values of each sample is referred to as sampling distribution. Kanaaf population sana keessa sample fudhannee sample sanaaf immoo mean yookaan average gaafa hojjennu fi sampling distribution mean jedhama jechuudha. Sampling distribution mean fakkeenyaaf sampling keenya isaan kanneen 6 7 8 9 10 11 probability isaanii bifa kanaan kennamee jira. So this is the way how we can distribute what the population mean. Characteristics or properties of sampling distribution of the mean. So expected value of the mean, E of mean or mean of the sample means equal to the population mean. Right? So population mean is equal to what? Sample mean. This one is one parameter or characteristics of what? Sampling distribution of the mean. Given the population mean, the population standard delta and the sample size small n and the population n capital, the standard deviation of the sample mean can be calculated by this formula. So standard deviation of the sample mean equivalent to standard deviation of the population divided for n, where radical n, where n is what? Infinite population. lakkoofni kan bira hin geenye yoo ta'e yookaan immoo sample sizing keenya large yoo ta'e bifa kana standard deviation of the mean barbaadna jechuudha. If it is finite dhaabbata yoo ta'e garuu maal fayyadamna? Formula kana fayyadamna jechuudha. So standard deviation of the sample equivalent to standard deviation of the mean over radical of sample size divided for sample population minus population, number of population minus number of sample divided for number of population minus 1. This one is used for finite population. Population in Kenya population is said to be infinite where it is not possible to list or all counts element including the population. Infinite gaafa jennu salphumatti lakkoofni kan bira hin geenye gaafate jechuudha. Suppose here are when n is less than or equal to 5% of n, the population is said to be finite. Generally, when n is greater than or equal to 0.05 of that value. Yeroo sana formula nuti fayyadamnu ishee kana refer to as finite population correction factor. Sample distribution of the mean is normally distributed regardless of the population mean from which it is drawn. Kenya example kana ilaalu. The average lifetime of the bulb is 3000 hours with standard deviation of what? 696 hours. If a simple random sample of 36 bulbs is taken, so A, what is the expected value, standard deviation, and the shape of the sampling distribution? B, what is the probability that the average lifetime of the in a sample mean will be between 2670.56 and 2809.76. Instead of values are what is the probability that the average lifetime of the sample will be equal or greater than this hours? So what is the probability that the average lifetime of the sample will be equal or greater than less than this hours? And finally, how large the sample need to be taken provides 0.0 probability that the average lifetime of the sample will be equal to or greater than this population. Enough. Magafi mukenname maayinni gubbaa kanarratti waan mukenname baasuun baay'ee barbaachisaadha. This the lifetime of the bulb mukenname standard deviation of population mukenname small n mukenname jechuudha. Isa kanaan hundofne expected value barbaanna jechuudha. Expected value. Kanaaf expected value is equal to mean. Reef dubbanneerra. Formula kunis mukenname. Expected value is equal to mean. Kanaaf mean immoo already mukennameera. kuma 3. So standard deviation is simply standard deviation of the population over radical of n right innis nu kennameera kunis kennamaadha waan ta'eef bifa kanaan barbaaduu dandeenya. Irratti expected or proportion nu kennameera. Proportion kuni nu kennameera. Kanaaf proportion kan argachuudhaaf mean nu kenname sana fudhanna jechuudha. Mean nu kenname kuni 2670 fi 2800. Kanaaf jidduu kana jiraachaa jira. Therefore, we have to deduct 3000 from this number and dividing for this value. Asset kan hojjennu sana jechuudha. Irra xiqqaa yookaan walqixa mean of the sample minus mean of population over this, which means this one. Therefore, in the range of this value, your population mean can be found around 0.0482. So in lammaffaa range isaa bifa kanaan ammas nu kennameera isa baafii sirriitti wal fakkaatu waan ta'eef bifa kanaan hojjetamee isiniif kennamee jira. Finally probability isaa nu kennamee meaning nu dhoowwameera. Yeah, so we can get this one. So we can get the sample size. Sample size nu gaafatee jira. How large the sample need? Kanaaf how large sample need jechuun inni nu gaafatee jira. Inni nu gaafatee. Kanaaf inni hojjechuuf proportionii kana fayyadamnee dhumarratti gatii inni keenya akkaataa kanaan arganna jechuudha. Akkaataa kanaan arganna. Kanaaf and this number can be close. The value of z is already given, is known, so you have to obtain the result because z distribution waan jedhamu jira. Z value achirratti kennameera. Fakkeenyaaf 0.01 gaafatee 2.33 ta'eera. Kanaaf dura standard deviation of the sample hojjenna. Standard deviation of sample hojjenne booda sample size keenya immoo bifa kanaan hojjechuudhaan 55 fideera jechuudha. Fideera. So in itti aanu immoo the sampling distribution between two mean, difference between two mean. Amma meaning keenya immoo lama ta'ee meaning lamaan jidduutti difference yoo jiraatu akkamitti hojjenna kan jedhudha. So another sampling distribution that would be soon encounter is that of the difference between the sample mean. So the sample plan calls independent random sampling drawn from each the two normal population. Suppose two population are there and N1 and N2 are given. For each sample size there is a small N1 for the first one and the mean x bar 1 and there is delta 1. Similarly for N2 there is also a second mean and there is also a second standard deviation. So based on this data we have this formula. The difference between population mean can be given like this, and the difference between the two standard deviation can be given like this. Yeah. So based on this, you have to determine the standard normal distribution by using z is equivalent to the mean difference of the sample minus the mean difference of the population over the standard deviation of the two mean. So by using z score, we can determine the difference of the population mean. For example, so in the study of annual family expenditure for general healthcare, two populations were surveyed with the following result. Population 1, N1 and x bar 1 is given. N2, x bar 2 is already given. If the variance of the population is given again like this, what is the probability of obtaining the sample result? As large as those if there is no difference in the mean of the two population. Yeah. So based on this data, we have to calculate the equation accordingly. Here is a z square. First, we have to determine that score value like using this formula. So we have to insert each given data nu kenname. Kallattiiman formula keessa substitute gochuutiin z value bifa kanaan argachuu dandeenya. Erga kana arganne booda z value kana jechuun immoo z table irratti almost this area qaba. This is subtracted from 1 to give the probability is around 0.002. So the probability is as large as given to this number. So the last one may be about proportion. Proportion means P bar and the Q bar are there. So sample proportion is the point estimator of the population proportion P, and the formula for computing proportion is simply like this: proportion equivalent to x over n now, where x is the number of the element in a sample that possesses characteristics of interest, and n is sample size. The sample proportion P is a random variable, and its probability distribution is called sample distribution of P, and the sample distribution of P is the probability of the distribution of all possible values of the sample proportion. Let me see this example again. Consider the population n capital, which is 5, and given like this. Let's take even number. The proportion of even number is simply 2 over 5. Why? Here is an even number. Yes, here is also an even number. Is 1, 2. So 2 over 5 is like this. This is almost 0.4. Consider the sample of size 3 that are drawn from the population. The sample proportion are given by this tab. Yeah, here is probability of even number. Here is 2 over 3. Here is probability is 1 over 3, and here also 1 over 3, and here also 1 over 3. Proportion can be expressed like this. For all scenario, here there is 0 over 3 because no even number at all. Here 1 over 3, here 2 over 3, here 1 over 3, here 2 over 3, again here 1 over 3. But the summation of all this number is maximum 1. So in a given table 1 above, we can construct the probability distribution of the sample proportion as shown below. If kanan probability proportion isa barreessuu yookaan kaa'uu ni dandeenya jechuudha. Maayinni proportion amalli isaa? What's the property of proportion? 1. Expected value of the sample proportion is equal to that of proportion 1, where EP is expected value of the random sample. The other one is just as with the standard deviation of the sample mean, the standard deviation of the sample proportion also depends whether the population is finite or infinite. For example, if your population is finite, which means n is greater than 0.05 times n, we can use this formula. But if it is infinite, we can use again this formula of determining standard deviation of what? The proportion where P is any given population proportion. Have a look at this example again. There is a soft drink is being marketed test. If the estimate that 60% of the consumer will like new drink, and a sample of 96 tests was the tested the new drink. Here we are asked to determine the error of proportion, the probability that equal or more than 70.4% of the consumer will indicate they like drink, and what's the probability of equal or more than 30% of the consumer will indicate they do not like the drink. So we have to calculate the standard deviation of the population proportion first by simply taking P times Q, because P is here 60%, which means 0.6. The remaining 0.4 is Q. So we have to multiply P by Q and dividing the total number of watts your sample to get your standard deviation of the proportion. But here the expected value is already given, so you have to determine the Z score become like this, and we need to compute a probability that less than 70%. So here also proportion is already given, so based on that proportion you have to determine the value of Z. So these are very interesting concept behind sampling a proportion. So the next one is sampling distribution, difference between two proportion also sometimes given. So here is two population size, maybe n1 and n2. Again we have two proportion, p1 and p2, P2 and there is standard deviation for both population proportion. So here the population proportion mean is exactly equal to P1 minus population proportion like this. There is standard deviation also given like this. P1 into 1 minus P1 over N1 plus P2 into 1 minus P2 over N2. If sample size N1 and N2 are large, which means N is greater than 13 or equal to 13, the sample proportion distribution of the two sample proportion is approximately normal distribution. So finally there is also here example. So based on this example, we have to calculate the standard deviation and mean of the proportion. So 10% of the machine produced by company A is defective and 5% of those produced by company B is defective. So random sample of this machine is taken in a company from A and random sample of this is taken from company B. So what is the probability that the difference in the sample proportion is less than or equal to what? 0.02, which is the margin of error. So we can calculate by using the formula, and you have simply substituting the value in that table that you have to get this one, and this desired probability of the difference in a sample proportion is given by again this formula. So finally you have to get what? This value. Yeah, so these are all about chapter 1. So thank you very much. Kanaaf boqonnaa tokkoof almost bifa kanaan finneerraa boqonnaa lammaffaa yeroo biraa kan ilaallu taatis all about statistical estimation kan jedhu yeroo dhufuu ilaalla jechuudha. Thank you very much.